Hello, Professor Toybox here along with Ray, and we're back in my tech-based toy box where I'm recreating the second mission of the 1994 Star Wars Dark Forces game. Today I'm going to work on the Ghost, which is the ship that's currently sitting here in the courtyard. In the original game, Jan Ors flies off with Kyle's ship at the start of the mission, right after she drops him off, and she returns to pick him up when the mission is over. I want to recreate that same experience in my toy box, so that's my goal for today. I've already got the ship sitting here, and I put this here when I first created the toy box, so I could make sure the courtyard here can accommodate it. And so as we get started, I'm going to come over here to the Creativitoys drawer, and we're going to put down a path creator. And I'm going to center this right under the ship here at the start of the mission. And that automatically puts me into point mode. And so as the ship is going to move, this is the path that I'm going to put it out. And I'm actually going to have it back up just a tad. And then come upward a little bit more, about right here. And then we're going to come over this way. And I'm going to come up a little ways. And that's kind of a traditional animation thing, is when something prepares to move forward, it backs up a little bit. That anticipates the movement that you want. And the question is where to send the ship. In the original game, the ship flew upward, and I can't have this just fly up and go nowhere. Eventually it's going to stop moving, and when it does, gravity takes over and it comes back down. So I have to put the ship someplace where it's not going to be a problem. And so I'm going to put it underneath the courtyard here, where it starts from. And I'm going to put a point down here. We'll put another one down about level with the bottom of that. And then we'll come down a little bit further and bring this right over underneath. So we're going to park it right underneath where it's starting, essentially. And we'll put it right there. And as we back up, you can kind of see the path and where it's going to go. And this way it gives the ship some place to go and sit while we're waiting for the mission to finish. And we'll come down here to the path properties now. If I can find the point, there it is. So under the properties for the path creator, the speed is fine. I do not want this looped, and I don't want to auto start objects when they're connected. So there we go. And then we'll go ahead and connect up the Ghost to our path. And there we are. And for the path properties for the Ghost, everything in here looks fine. The one thing we need to change is the movement style, and we're going to do one way and stop. So when we start this ship moving along the path, it's going to follow this path as it heads on out and around and down, and when it reaches the end of this path, it's essentially going to drop off the path and it'll start falling. And so we need somewhere to put the ship so that it doesn't drop into oblivion. And for that, oops, went past it, I'm going to put down a terrain block. And this one should be wide enough for us. And I think that will work about right there. And I don't really need to theme this because the player should never see it, but just in case they do, we'll come over here and set this to our World War Hulk terrain. I have that power disc down on the base currently. And there we go. So right now the ship, when I start it moving, will move along this path at a constant speed, and it'd be kind of nice if it were a little bit more dynamic. So the ship's going to start off at 100, and I think we can leave this one set at 100, which is the default. When it gets to this point, though, I'd like it moving at 200. So I'm going to set the speed for that to 200. And that means from this point, which is at the default of 100, to this point, it'll be accelerating. And then at this point out here, we'll set this to be the max that we can set it, which is 300. And so by the time it gets out of the courtyard and is on its way, it's going to really be moving. And we can do that with this point out here as well, just to keep it moving fast and get it out of sight, because I don't want the player to see it actually coming below the courtyard where it started. And we'll set this one to 300 as well. And the final point down here, right above the platform, I'm going to leave that set at 100. And that way, when it comes off the path, it's not going to go flying off the end of this block. Now I need a way to start this moving along the path. And there's several different ways we could do this. I could start it with the level starter. I could use a trigger area. I could use all kinds of different things. I'm actually going to use the trigger area, and I'm going to put that right over top of this little starting area here. And that's so that when I load up the toy box and start my playthrough video, I can introduce the video a little bit, and nothing's going to happen until I have the character move outside of this block, which will signal the toy box that I'm ready to go. And so with this, we're going to set up a new logic connection when it's exited by player any. We'll come over to the path and we'll do a reset and play. And that will start the ghost moving along the path. And I'm probably going to have to test this several times, so I'm going to come over here to my reset button, and we'll go ahead and hook that up and connect that to this path as well. And that will do a reset and stop, which will put the ghost back up here in the courtyard. That way I have a way to test this. And I only want this to happen one time, so I'm going to put down one more creativitoy, and that's going to be a logic gate. And if you've watched a lot of my videos, you know this little trick very well. I use this a lot. I'm going to have the trigger area set up. Oops, not that one. Can't seem to select it. So new logic connection when exited by player any. So the first player that exits this, we're going to come over to the logic gate, input into that, and on output from the logic gate, we'll come back over to the trigger area and deactivate it. And again, the reason I do that is because I can't hook a trigger signal back up to this and have it turn around and come back to the trigger area and connect to it directly. It has to go through something else. And so the logic gate is just a good way to do that. And we'll go ahead and move this down below and hide it down here, like so. And now I think we're ready to test the flyout. So we'll come up here and see how this works. So we'll bring Ray over onto the starting pad. And hello, welcome to my toy box. And as we start playing, there goes the ship. And now it's taking off and flying out. And we want to go see where it goes. And I see it's passing through the block there, but that doesn't seem to cause a problem. There it goes. And now it's sitting there on the block waiting for us. So the ship kind of passed through that little block there. It's not really a problem, but it can pass through there safely. But I could take and lower this down a little bit so that it doesn't do that. but then you'll notice that it starts to droop down below the edge of that block. And I definitely don't want it to do that. So I think that's about the lowest we could probably go with it. And I think that should be okay. Let's take a look at that path now. Yeah, that should be good. It doesn't dip down too far. And the main one that it needs to clear the blocks on is up here where the player sees it. We definitely don't want them to see this passing through this block here as it's on its way out. So that's good. I like that. The ship flies out and we're on our mission. So now we have to bring the ship back at the end of the mission. And here's the problem with that, is this ship is currently connected to that path. And there's kind of some ways I could try to connect this to another path when it reaches the end of this path. That's certainly an option. I think maybe the easier way to do this is to drop a second version of the Ghost down here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we can put this right here. And the player's never going to know that there's two of these. So there's that. And then just like before, we need a creativity toy. Whoa, my goodness. Oops. Oh no! It's causing havoc. Alrighty then. Yeah, every time you have creativity toys and different things here, it wants to push stuff out of the way. So, oh well. Let's see, we need a second path here. We're going to go ahead and connect this. And we'll put it right here for right now. And we're going to want to bring this out this way, out beyond the edge of this, and start it moving upward. And let's see, this time, it's a matter of how far over we want to bring this. And we may have to tweak this a little bit to get this to go where we want it to go. Thinking maybe we want to bring this over a little more towards the center of the courtyard here. And I'm thinking maybe undo and bring this one down all the way. And I don't know that I want to bring it all the way down here, because when I've done that in the past, sometimes the ship comes a little too low and then it bounces back up. So we'll try it here and see how that goes. Okay, and then we'll come back down. And I think leaving this at the default speed of 100 is fine. We definitely want this thing moving pretty good by the time it reaches this point, so we're going to set this to be the max at 300. And same with this point up here. $300. And this one here. And then as it starts to drop into the courtyard, it should slow down. So we're going to set this one to be 200. Oops, 200. Here we go. And then the last point we can leave at 100, which is the default. And that will bring the ship back. So now we'll go ahead and connect this up, and thinking because I've got both of these ships under here, let's go ahead and move this block over just a little bit. Oops, I caused them to fall off. Alright, we're going to take that one now and connect it over to the path. Good thing they don't get completely lost. Oh no, I forgot to set the properties for this so it doesn't do the auto start. And the ship is going to loop because that's its default behavior. So I want to change that to one-way and stop. Well, while it's going, we can kind of see its movement here and decide how that's going. There we go. Kind of has a little bit of a rough landing there, but that actually adds a little character, I think. And let's go ahead and hook up the reset button here so we can put that ship back underneath. So new logic connection when pressed. And come over here to this path and do a reset and stop. Okay, so that should put the first ship back up in the courtyard, which it did. And the second ship is down below. So now I'm going to go ahead and get this moving one more time. I want to make sure that the ship that's going out is not going to collide with the one that's down below and knock it off the platform. So here we go. Oh yeah, I deactivated that trigger area. That's right. So I need to come back over to the reset button again. And as part of the reset, we need to reactivate this trigger area. There we go. Oh, yeah. I gotta hit the button first. That got me all flustered when that ship didn't work great. Oh well, things like that happen. Just can't let them get to you. Just need to regroup. Okay, ship is there. Trigger area should be on. Now we should be able to run through here. And the ghost flies off. And let's go see what happens underneath. Make sure it doesn't run into it. Perfect. Okay. So now that one's down there. Now we need to bring the other one in. So now we need another trigger of some kind to do that. And I'm thinking for this one, we're going to go ahead and set up a trigger area that's a little bit larger because I don't necessarily know how they're going to get back to this courtyard. They may come along the top, they may run down those stairs, they may jump over the sides here and come around, so I'm not exactly sure. And I don't want to wait until they're back at the courtyard before I start it moving, because it'll start moving down below and they'll be standing there waiting for the ship to come back for a good 20-30 seconds before that actually happens. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to set this up back over here and kind of start it moving before the player actually gets there. And we'll do that back over here. And I'll actually start it on this end. I'm going to go ahead and raise this up and bring this over. So now it won't matter. Oop. Trying to get into spark mode here. Okay, it won't matter then when they come back up here if they jump over the sides and come around the side or they run through the middle. As soon as they enter this trigger area, that's when I want to start that other ship moving. So new logic connection when entered this time, not exited, by player any. We'll come back down over here and do a reset and play. And again, like before, I only want to do that one time. So we're going to need another logic gate. I think it might be faster to go this direction. It's kind of halfway along the drawer here. So again, new logic connection when entered by player any. And again, you see I can't come back and select this trigger area. That's why we need a logic gate to go to. We'll input to that. New logic connection on output from the gate. Come back over here. And we'll deactivate this trigger area. And before I forget, the reset button should reactivate that. Now, another advantage of going through the gate here this time as well is that I can close this gate at the start of the mission. So when the player first gets dropped off and they run out of this area and through this trigger area, at this point I don't want the ship to come back. So at this point we're going to want this to be closed by default. But I'm not going to do that until I have a chance to test this out a little bit. So the ship's already flown out. So let's assume the mission's over. We're going to come over here and run back through this trigger area and see what happens. And we're in the trigger area now. I'm going to come around this way so we can kind of see the ship returning, hopefully. Hey, almost perfect timing. And there it is. Plunk. It does kind of clunk there at the end, doesn't it? Not exactly the smoothest of landings. But there we go. So I think that'll work good. The spacing at that point is fine. That gives us time to get out from this area and get over to the courtyard before the ship gets here. And they won't have to wait too long. So I'm going to come back over here. And we're going to go ahead and hook our reset button up with a new logic connection when pressed. And we're going to come over to this logic gate, and I'm going to close that. And when the mission is all over and we've picked up the objective over in the Rebel base, that Dark Trooper weapon, that will reopen this gate so that when we run back over here and come through this trigger area, we'll be able to have the ship return. So we'll go ahead and reset this. And I'll hook that logic up next time for that logic gate so that you can see how that works, because we're going to do the mission objectives next time. So for right now, I think this has turned out pretty well. Interesting, it put us back up here again. That's kind of odd. But anyway, I think this turned out pretty well. We have a ship that flies out at the start of the mission, and it takes off in kind of a nice, believable way, and flies off as we're on our way. And right now, since that trigger area is deactivated over here, we can run through this way, and that ship is not going to return. We can look down there all day and it's not going to come. Oh, oops. Oh well. At this point, I think we've got all of the unique features for this mission implemented in my toy box. Next time, I'll show you where I'm going to place the enemy troops, and I'll show you how to hook up the radar markers and the creativitoys that'll guide the player through the mission. Meanwhile, if you haven't already done so, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel or sign up on my blog so you can follow my progress on this project. For those of you who want to build this in your own toy box, you should definitely visit my blog, where I've posted floor plans, logic diagrams, and other things that will help you recreate what I've done. Thank you for watching, and be sure to come back for my next episode.